It was 2:14 p.m. on a Tuesday. Phoenix was sitting at 102 degrees Celsius, about 39 degrees C, the kind of heat rising off the asphalt that could cook an egg. But trust me, the heat outside was nothing compared to the wildfire burning inside Mark's head. My husband, or more accurately, my soon-to-be ex-husband. I was sitting in an SUV parked across the street, tinted windows up, AC blasting, holding an iced Americano. Through the telephoto lens on my camera, I could see every single bead of sweat sliding down his temples. Mark stood at the front door of our house. Actually, let me correct that. My house. He'd just gotten back from his important business trip in Denver that lasted a week. But funny thing, instead of the pale, drained look of a man trapped in conference rooms, Mark came home with a healthy tan, the lingering scent of expensive Santal 33 that I bought, and a crisp white linen shirt that screamed vacation. Mark stuck his key into the lock. He turned it. Nothing. He tried again, harder. Still stuck. I smirked and took a sip of coffee. Sweetie, old keys don't open new lives. Mark started pounding on the door. His fists thudded against it, useless and desperate. He yanked out his phone, scrolling like his life depended on it. My phone buzzed. The caller ID popped up. His fake smiley face labeled hubby. I let it ring all the way through before I finally answered. Sarah, where the hell are you? Mark screamed, his once deep, charming voice now sounding like a pig getting slaughtered. The damn key is broken. And why are all the curtains gone? I'm standing out here in the sun. Hi, Mark, I said, so calm it was ice, the complete opposite of his panic. How is Denver? Cabo's weather is probably a lot nicer than Denver, huh? The line went dead silent. Exactly 3 seconds. Just enough time for his goldfish brain to process what I'd said. What are you talking about? Sarah, open the door. Stop being crazy. Look through the living room window, Mark. I cut him off. He hesitated, then pressed his face to the floor-to-ceiling glass. I zoomed in on his expression. It was a priceless moment I planned to keep forever. Mark's eyes went wide. His jaw dropped. Inside the 80-square-meter living room that used to be decorated with an Italian leather sofa set, an 85-inch TV, a high-end sound system, and pricey art, was completely empty. Nothing. Just glossy hardwood floors and one cheap folding plastic chair placed dead center. On that chair sat a thick yellow envelope. Where's the furniture? Sarah, where is my stuff? Mark shrieked, his voice cracking with fear. Do you want to go in and take a look? I asked softly. I already unlocked the smart lock remotely. Go on. Your welcome gift is waiting on the chair. Read it carefully, especially page 15. I hung up and leaned back in my seat. The show had officially started. Joe 2:30. Backstory. The truth about the successful businessman. Before you watch Mark rip that envelope to shreds in rage, let me tell you how we ended up here. And more importantly, why Mark was stupid enough to think he could play me. 5 years ago, Mark was nothing. A third-rate real estate salesman drowning in debt after his divorce from Brenda, his first wife. Brenda was a full-on princess type who kicked Mark to the curb the moment he lost his job. Mark showed up in my life in a pathetic state. A crappy rental, a beat-up Honda Civic, a broken heart, and $45,000 in credit card debt. And me? I'm Sarah, the bookworm who worked in financial data analysis. I wasn't glamorous like Brenda. I didn't pout. I didn't demand Hermes bags. I was practical, logical, and I had savings. Mark used his smooth-talking mouth to woo me. He called me his safe harbor, the smartest woman he'd ever met. And I, naive, and never having loved that deeply before, believed him. We got married. And then I did what a lot of stupid good wives do. I fixed his life. I paid off Mark's debt. I used 10 years of my savings to open a real estate brokerage for him, Summit Realty. I set up the CRM. I wrote the sales scripts. I managed the cash flow. I did the tax reports every night while Mark went out networking. To the world, Mark was the flashy CEO, the handsome face on billboards all over the city. He got praised as Entrepreneur of the Year. And me? I was just Mark's wife, the quiet woman standing in the corner at parties, holding his wallet while he laughed with female clients. But there was one thing Mark forgot. Or maybe he never cared enough to remember. I'm a data analyst. My job is to find anomalies, numbers that don't match, patterns hiding inside chaos. I didn't need women's intuition to know he was cheating. I just needed a bank statement. Mark thought he was clever withdrawing cash to spend on Brenda and their 2 kids. He thought labeling trips on his calendar Denver conference would fool me, but he made a fatal mistake. A classic mistake of narcissists who are drunk on their own hype. He forgot who drafted every contract he ever signed. He forgot who actually held the keys, literally and figuratively. 3 years ago, when the company started making massive profits, Mark signed a thick stack of documents I handed him one night while he was wasted after a celebration. He signed with that smug grin, didn't even glance at the title, just scribbled Mark D in that showy signature, then kissed my cheek and said, "You handle this boring paperwork, babe. I'm the one who handles the big stuff." The big stuff? Ha! That signature was your death sentence, Mark. Back to the present. Mark was standing in the empty living room, hands shaking as he grabbed the yellow envelope. Inside wasn't just divorce paperwork. It was an eviction notice. And most importantly, it was a copy of the partnership agreement he'd signed 3 years earlier without reading. Do you want to know what it said? And how Mark reacted when he realized he didn't just lose his wife and his home, he also owed me a massive amount of money? Hit subscribe and turn on notifications right now. Because in the next part, I'm going to show you exactly what Mark did to humiliate me, and how I quietly turned him from a millionaire into a homeless man in under 24 hours. Comment, "Justice served" below if you're ready to watch this trash husband pay. People love to say, money changes people. I don't agree. Money is just a giant microscope. It magnifies what was already inside you. If you're an awful person, money turns you into a powerful, awful person. And Mark? Oh, my Mark became a perfect textbook case of the cheating, ungrateful behavior of a newly rich wannabe. The change didn't happen overnight. It crept in slowly like mold inside the walls. First, the clothes. Custom suits replaced off the rack. Then the attitude. He started cutting me off in meetings. "You only understand numbers, Sarah. You don't understand vision," he'd say, right in front of employees I personally hired and trained. I'd see them staring down at the table, embarrassed for me, and I'd just force a smile and tell myself work stress was getting to him. But the peak humiliation started when Brenda came back. Brenda, the ex-wife who dumped Mark 5 years earlier, suddenly reappeared the second a local Forbes magazine ran a piece on Summit Realty's rocket-fast growth. She called sobbing about how child support wasn't enough, even though Mark paid double what the court ordered. She said the kids needed their dad. Mark, with that fragile male ego begging to be stroked, took the bait immediately. He started playing the savior hero. "She's the mother of my kids, Sarah. I can't let them suffer," Mark told me as he signed a $5,000 check for the kids' extracurricular tuition. I didn't object to him supporting his children, but I knew exactly where that money was going. Straight into Brenda's brand new Louis Vuitton bags. It got worse last month. I walked into the office on a Monday morning and found Betty, our 60-year-old accountant who'd been with us since the early days in that cramped garage, packing up her desk in tears. "What happened, Betty?" I asked, my chest tightening. She couldn't even look at me. She just handed me the termination letter. Reason: restructuring. Signature at the bottom: Mark D. I stormed into Mark's office. He was sitting there with his feet on the desk, laughing on the phone. "Why did you fire Betty?" I snapped. Mark hung up and let out a bored sigh. "Sarah, Betty's too old. She's slow. She doesn't fit the company's energetic image anymore. We need fresh air." "And who exactly is this fresh air?" The door opened. Brenda walked in. She wore a tight red dress, way too revealing for an office. Her perfume punching me in the face. "Hi, Sarah," she smirked, eyes dripping with provocation. "Mark just appointed me Director of Client Relations. I think we're going to work great together." Mark looked at me with a challenge in his eyes. "Brenda has connections. She'll bring in contracts. You should learn how to socialize from her instead of hiding behind a computer all day." That was the moment something inside me cracked. Not jealousy. Pure disgust. He fired a loyal, hard-working woman just to install a parasite in the system I built with blood and sweat. And he had the nerve to tell me, the brain of this company, to learn from a gold digger. I wanted to scream, flip the desk, slap Brenda's heavily powdered face, but then a cold calm washed over me. The data analyst in me kicked in. Emotion is the enemy of strategy. Anger is weakness. I took a slow breath and smiled, the blandest, emptiest smile I could manage. "Fine," I said gently. "If you think that's what's best for the company. Welcome, Brenda." Mark and Brenda exchanged a victorious grin. They thought I'd surrendered. They thought I was a little mouse terrified of President Mark. They had no idea that in that exact moment I flipped the switch to destroy mode. For the next month, I became invisible. I played the role of the resigned wife, the fated business partner. "I'm tired, I'm heading home early," I'd say every afternoon. "Go have dinner with your partner, Brenda." "I'm not hungry," I'd text every night. But behind the closed door of my home office, I became a digital ghost. Mark banned me from touching HR decisions, but he forgot who was the highest level admin on the company's servers. He forgot who had the master password to the business bank accounts. Every night from 11 p.m. to 3 a.m., I sat in the dark with only the blue glow of my screen on my face. I downloaded everything. Every disgusting flirt email between Mark and Brenda, using the company email, so stupid. Every client entertainment charge at jewelry stores, luxury spas, and five-star hotels under Brenda's name. I recovered deleted files and traced shady transfers from the company fund into Brenda's personal account labeled consulting fees. And then I found the gem. A booking confirmation email from the Ritz-Carlton Los Cabos, presidential suite. 5 nights. Guest list: Mark, Brenda, and their 2 kids. Total cost: $28,000. Payment method: Summit Realty corporate credit card, coded as Denver conference expenses. Departure: July 12th. Return: July 19th. Mark told me it was an important business trip to meet investors in Denver. He even pretended to complain. "I'm exhausted, Sarah, but I have to go. For our future." "Our future," I murmured, fingers gliding over the keyboard. I printed every piece of evidence, 1 copy stored in the cloud, 1 sent to my private attorney, and 1 sitting in that thick yellow envelope waiting for him in the living room. But the cheating and embezzlement were just the tip of the iceberg. The real weapon, the one that would make Mark lose not just his wife, but everything, was in an old yellowed document he'd signed 3 years earlier. It was the company operating agreement. When we formed the company, I inserted a special clause, the Ethics and Loyalty Clause, buried in dense legal language on page 15, line 42. That clause stated clearly, if any founding member was found misusing company funds for illegal personal purposes or committing marital misconduct that damaged the company's reputation, with legitimate proof, that member would be required to sell all of their shares back to the other member at a nominal value of, want to guess how much? $1. Yep, $1 for the $1 million empire he loved to brag about. I watched Mark one last time through the home security cameras. He was tearing through empty drawers, screaming my name. He still didn't know he'd lost the company the moment he signed that hotel bill in Cabo. It was time for me to step into the light and end this play. The next morning, 9 a.m. sharp, I sat at the head of the glass conference table at Summit Realty. In front of me, a glass of water, a closed laptop, and most importantly, an eerie calm. The conference room door flew open. Mark walked in. He looked like a pathetic wreck. Yesterday's white linen shirt was now wrinkled like a rag, his eyes bloodshot from no sleep. He probably slept in his car or some cheap motel, because I'd frozen his personal credit card too. And he reeked of sour desperation. Behind him came Brenda, still trying to look classy, but her heavy makeup couldn't hide the panic. And Brad. Ah, Brad. Mark's college buddy. A bottom-tier lawyer who handled DUI cases but always introduced himself as senior legal counsel. Mark brought Brad to scare me. Hilarious. You crazy bitch! Mark screamed, slamming his hand on the glass table. You changed the locks on my house? You sold my stuff? Do you know I had to call the cops? But they said it's a civil matter? Fine. If you want to play law, I'll play law. Brad straightened his crooked tie, cleared his throat like he mattered, and dropped a stack of papers on the table. Hello, Sarah, Brad said in that condescending tone men use when they think women don't understand the law. Listen, Mark is very upset by your impulsive behavior, but out of respect for the marriage, he's willing to let the house situation go. Here are the divorce papers and the property settlement. Mark wants 50% of the company, 50% of the house value, and you must compensate Brenda for emotional distress damages for harassing her. Harassed? I raised an eyebrow, cutting him off. When did I harass her? Brenda crossed her arms and pouted. You followed us. You invaded our privacy. Mark says you have obsessive issues. I laughed. The sound came out dry and sharp in the cold room. All right. You done performing? My turn. I opened my laptop. The projector screen behind me lit up. The first image appeared, a crisp photo of Mark and Brenda hugging with cocktails by the pool at the Ritz-Carlton Cabo. Date and time stamped clearly in the corner. Mark went pale. Brenda's mouth fell open. How do you have that? Mark stammered. Next slide, I said, clicking. A detailed statement from Summit Realty's corporate credit card. The red highlighted line screamed off the screen. Business class flights, 4,200. 5-star resort, $28,000. Gucci shopping, women's handbag, 5,500. Full spa package, 1,200. Total, $38,900. All categorized under Denver Market Development Expenses. This is embezzlement, Mark, I said, my voice ice cold. You used company money, shareholder money, tax money, to bankroll your mistress. And worse, you pulled an employee, Brenda, into fraud with you. Brad jumped in fast. Hold on, Sarah. This is just an accounting mistake. Mark is the CEO. He has discretion over spending. He'll reimburse it. It's a small thing. Don't distract from the asset split. Mark regained a little confidence hearing his buddy defend him. He slicked his hair back and curled his lip into that arrogant smirk that made me want to punch him. Exactly, Sarah. You think these receipts scare me? This company has my name on it. Clients know Mark D. Nobody knows who Sarah is. You want a divorce? Fine. But I'm taking half of what I deserve. I'm the one who made the money for this house. I looked at him with pity. You really don't remember anything, do you, Mark? I pulled an old-looking document folder from my purse. The secret weapon, I mentioned. I tossed it on the table and slid it toward Brad. Open to page 15, clause 42, I ordered. Brad picked it up and squinted. His face went from pink to white, then to an ashy gray. What the hell is this? He muttered, his hands starting to shake. Read it out loud, Brad, I said. Brad swallowed, voice small. In the event that member A, Mark, is found to have used company funds for illegal personal purposes exceeding $1,000 without the written consent of member B, Sarah, or engaged in unethical conduct that creates reputational risk for the company, member A will be immediately stripped of operating authority. And, I pressed, and member A is required to sell back all equity to member B at the nominal value specified in Appendix C. Mark snatched the paper out of Brad's hand. What the hell are you reading? I never read this. I only signed the company formation paperwork. Exactly. I smiled, leaning back. You signed it 3 years ago. You were too busy celebrating to read what your wife drafted. You trusted me completely, right? Or more accurately, you were lazy and you underestimated me. What's the nominal value? Brenda cut in, her voice sharp. It has to be market value. This company is worth millions. I stared straight into Brenda's eyes. Flip to Appendix C. Brad flipped to the back. He froze, mouth opening and closing like he couldn't make sound. Go on, Brad, I said. How much is your mistress's $1 million company worth under this contract? Brad looked up at Mark, pure horror in his eyes. Oh, $1. The room went silent. You could hear the AC humming. Then Mark suddenly burst out laughing. Full-on cackling, echoing off the glass walls, wild, frantic denial. $1? Ha ha ha! You've got to be kidding me. Sarah, you watch too many movies! He stood up and pointed at my face, his cheeks red with rage and contempt. You think this scrap of paper can steal my company? I am Summit Realty. I'm the face of it. What judge would accept a ridiculous clause like this? Are you stupid? He turned to Brad. Tell her, Brad, this contract is invalid. It's trash. Brad wiped his forehead, trying to salvage his ego. Sarah, this clause, it's unusual. We could sue to avoid it. It would take years and cost a fortune in legal fees. Best option is you tear it up and we negotiate a 50-50 split. Mark grinned, triumphant. See? You can't scare me. You want to play dirty? Fine. I'll sue you for fraud and theft. I'll smear you all over this city as a crazy, jealous wife trying to sabotage her husband. Let's see who still hires you then. I watched the two men trying to use loud voices to cover their fear. Did they really think I only had this one document? Did they think someone who spent 5 years analyzing risk, would walk into this war with a weapon the court could just throw out? I sighed and snapped my laptop shut. Mark, you really think I stop here? I looked at the clock. You think the $1 nominal value is the worst part? You're wrong. That's the most merciful exit I'm offering you. I pulled out my phone, opened an audio recording, and set it on the table. Want to hear Mark's conversation with the construction boss last month about greasing palms to bypass zoning regulations on the East Side project? Mark's smile vanished. This time, the fear was real. You were spying on me? Not spying, I said. The office security cameras record audio, Mark. You're the one who insisted we install them to monitor employees, remember? I stood, walked to the window, and looked down at the city. I don't need a judge to rule whether this contract clause holds up, Mark, because you're going to sign the transfer voluntarily, right now. Why the hell would I do that? Mark hissed through clenched teeth. I turned back, eyes sharp as a scalpel. Because you have 60 seconds to choose. 60 seconds, I repeated, my voice like a judge's gavel. Timer starts now. Mark stood frozen. Cold sweat burst across his forehead, mixing with hair gel into a slimy streak running down his temples. What the hell are you talking about? Choose what? I slowly reopened my laptop and turned the screen toward them. No more vacation photos. Now it was a drafted email to the IRS and the FBI, Attachments included the bribery recording and 6 months of Mark's financial fraud files. Option A. I raised one finger. You sign a document transferring all your company shares to me for $1. You walk out of here with nothing, but you walk out free. I will forget to send this email, and I'll treat that $38,000 embezzlement as a bad debt I'm writing off. Option B. I raised a second finger. You walk out that door without signing. 5 minutes later, I hit send. With proof of bribing a zoning official in tax evasion, you're looking at least 10 to 15 years in federal prison. Oh, and don't forget Brenda. She's an accomplice who benefited from stolen money. She gets a ticket to prison, too. Brenda screamed. What? I'm not involved. Mark said it was a company bonus. I didn't know anything. She instantly dropped Mark's hand like he was burning coal and backed behind Brad. Mark, you lied to me. You said you were the all-powerful president. Mark turned to his mistress, totally panicked. Brenda, baby, calm down. I'll handle it. Handle my ass. Brad, the best friend lawyer, cut in suddenly. He was wiping sweaty hands on his dress pants like a man possessed. Mark, listen. I do traffic law. I don't touch federal criminal cases. That recording. Damn it. If it's real, you're finished. I can't defend you. If I get dragged into this, I lose my license. You're betraying me, Brad? Mark screamed, desperate. I'm saving you, you idiot, Brad whispered, loud enough for everyone to hear. Sign. If she sends that to the FBI, you'll rot in prison. She's got you by the throat. I looked at the wall clock. 40 seconds. Mark panted. He looked around the room like a trapped animal. He looked at Brad, shaking his head. He looked at Brenda, staring at him with disgust and fear. And finally, he looked at me. But he still wasn't fully surrendering. His ego was too big. Sarah, you won't do it. He tried to force a crooked smile, switching to a pleading tone. We're married. You still love me, right? You built this company for us. You can't send me to prison. We can start over. 30 seconds. I cut him off, emotionless. And let me be very clear about that $1,000,000 empire you think you have. I threw another financial report on the table. You think you're rich because last month's revenue looked high? Idiot. You've been spending 200% above real cash flow. You owe suppliers $150,000. You owe $80,000 in unpaid taxes. If I hadn't been using my personal money to plug those holes every month, this company would have been bankrupt 6 months ago. I leaned forward and stared into his eyes. The truth is, Mark, you don't own millions. You own a massive debt that only my brain can untangle. If you keep this company without me, you'll be broke within 3 months. Sign, and I'll carry the mess for you. That's my final act of mercy. 15 seconds. Mark picked up the pen. His hand shook so hard the expensive Mont Blanc tapped the tabletop. He stared at the transfer paper. The line, transfer price $1.00, looked like it was laughing in his face. 10, 9, 8. I started counting down. Damn it, Mark shouted, tears spilling from humiliation and helplessness. He slammed the pen down and scribbled his signature across the page. Shaky, ugly, none of that smug flourish he loved. He threw the pen and collapsed into the chair, clutching his head. Happy now? You took everything. I calmly pulled the paper toward me and checked the signature. Perfect. I signed next to it. Thunk. The stamp hit the page, sharp and final. An era ended. Not done, I said, closing the folder. Hand over the car keys. Mark snapped his head up. What? That's my car. No, I said. It's a company car under the company name. Since you're no longer an employee or director of Summit Realty, you have no right to use company assets. Keys. Now. Mark clenched his jaw, pulled out the Mercedes S-Class key and tossed it onto the table. And the phone, I continued. Also company property. You want me to walk home? You want me to be unable to contact anyone? You can borrow Brenda's phone. I smiled, glancing at her. Oh, right. Brenda was also just fired as Director of Client Relations, so you need to return your badge and your company phone too, Brenda. Brenda glared, but when she saw the cold look in my eyes, she silently dug out the phone and keycard and placed them on the table. She knew silence was her only currency now. Please, leave my building. I stood and pointed to the door. Security is waiting downstairs. If you're not gone in 5 minutes, I'll call the police and report trespassing. Mark stood, swaying like he was drunk. He looked around the luxurious conference room one last time, his former throne. Now he was just a pathetic failure. No house, no car, no company, and beside him a gold-digging mistress already sick of him. "You'll regret this, Sarah," he muttered weakly, like a man who knew he'd lost. "The only person regretting anything here is you, for underestimating your wife," I said. They shuffled out. Brad didn't even dare look at me. He hurried after them, abandoning his client. When the door shut, silence filled the room. I stood alone in the wide space. My heart was racing, not from fear but from the adrenaline of victory. I pulled a $1 bill from my wallet and clipped it to the freshly signed contract, placing it neatly on the table. The price of betrayal, the price of freedom. I walked to the window and looked down at the street. 3 small figures were arguing on the sun-blasted sidewalk. I watched Brenda flag down a taxi and climb in alone, leaving Mark shouting after her. Brad jumped into his own car and sped off. Only Mark remained, standing alone under Phoenix's 40 degrees Celsius heat, in wrinkled clothes, with no wallet. I froze his cards. No phone, no car. I took a sip of water and felt sweetness spread through my throat. Justice had been served, but Mark's punishment was only beginning. 14 months later, 14 months, that's how long it takes a person to be reborn. I stood in front of a large mirror in the suite at the Hyatt Regency. Tonight was the gala for Female Entrepreneur of the Year. The woman in the mirror wasn't the timid Sarah hiding behind a computer screen anymore. She wore a perfectly tailored navy gown, hair pinned up with pride, and most importantly, her eyes were blazing with confidence. Summit Realty was dead. Right after Mark signed, I renamed the company Phoenix Capital. The name said everything, rising from the ashes. Without Mark draining the budget on pointless parties, and without the ghost expenses for his mistress, company profits tripled in the first year alone. I rehired Betty, the older accountant Mark fired, and promoted her to CFO. Former employees came back, and we built a workplace based on competence, not flattery. But the best thing wasn't the money, it was freedom. I no longer had to check my husband's location at midnight. I no longer had to play dumb just to pet the fragile ego of an incompetent man. And Mark? You're probably curious about that fake Entrepreneur of the Year. After that day in the conference room, Mark's life went into a free fall. Rumors about the embezzlement scandal spread fast in the real estate world. I didn't leak them myself, but I didn't stop employees from talking. No company would touch him. Brad, the lousy lawyer buddy, cut off contact the moment the Bar Ethics Committee started sniffing around over the paperwork cover-up. I sent a small anonymous report just to be sure. Brenda? Oh, their romance ended exactly 2 weeks after Mark ran out of money. She kicked him out of their cramped rental apartment and quickly latched onto a pawn shop owner 20 years older than her. Tonight, as I stepped out of the glittering hotel lobby, my heels clicked in rhythm on the marble floor. I handed my valet ticket to the attendant. "Please bring my car, the black Mercedes S-Class." "Yes, ma'am, right away." A few minutes later, the familiar car rolled up. The door opened. The person stepping out of the driver's seat wasn't the young attendant from earlier. It was a middle-aged man with a slightly hunched back, wearing an oversized valet uniform. His face was gaunt, skin weathered by sun and wind, and the hair that once gleamed with gel was now messy and peppered with gray. He bowed his head, not daring to look the customer in the eye. "Here's your car, ma'am. Have a—" His voice cut off. He looked up. Our eyes met. It was Mark. I froze for a second, then immediately put my calm back on. Mark stared at me, glamorous, powerful, standing beside the car he once treated like a sacred trophy. Then he looked down at his own pathetic state. Shame sat plainly in his sunken eyes. "Sarah," Mark croaked. "Is that you?" "Hi, Mark." I smiled politely, the smile you give a stranger. "The new job looks like it suits you." Mark swallowed, stepped closer, begging on his face. "Sarah, I'm sorry, I was wrong. My life is hell now. Brenda left me. I'm drowning in debt. I miss you. I miss our family. Can you—" I lifted a hand to stop his familiar rant midstream. "Stop, Mark. You don't miss me. You miss the ATM with my name on it." I opened the door and sat in the soft leather driver's seat. The luxurious scent inside the car drowned out the sour sweat coming off Mark. Before I closed the door, I looked at him one last time. No hatred, no pain, just pity for someone who never knew how to value what he had. "Thanks for taking good care of the car," I said. I pulled out a bill and pressed it into Mark's rough, trembling hand. It was a $1 bill. "Tip," I winked. "Seems like the perfect match for your value in that old contract, huh?" I slammed the car door shut. In the rearview mirror, I saw Mark standing motionless in the hotel entrance, gripping the crumpled $1 bill, watching my red taillights shoot into the city's bright night. Justice wasn't just done. It was served perfectly. 3 painful lessons. My story ends here, but the lessons are still the same. Burn these 3 things into your brain. Never be the invisible backline, woman or man. Never sacrifice in silence until you erase yourself. If you're the one building the success, make sure your name is on the ownership paperwork, not just in empty thank yous. Evidence is survival. Don't wait for disaster to start collecting. Save everything: statements, emails, texts. In the digital age, data is king, and the person holding the data wins. Legal weapons. Love can end, but contracts can last. Always have your own $1 clause or a solid prenup. Don't sign anything you haven't read, and make sure the other person signs what protects you before they turn on you. If you felt that rush watching Mark get that final $1 bill, smash the like button right now. Do you have your own revenge story? Or are you stuck with a Mark of your own? Comment "Justice served" below, so I know you made it all the way to the end with me. Don't forget to subscribe and turn on the bell. Next week's video is about a nightmare mother-in-law and a fake sweet daughter-in-law who flipped the whole game. You won't want to miss it. Goodbye. And remember, live kindly, but don't let anyone trample that kindness.